Well, Israel is eagerly anticipating the return of dozens of hostages in exchange for that temporary ceasefire and the release of Palestinian security prisoners. Is this the right approach? Now, here to speak with us about the Israel-Gaza truce and the terms of the deal is former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. and former MK, Michael Oren. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you on this very difficult day, very complex day.
Indeed. So first off, what is your take on this hostage deal? Is it a good deal for Israel to make?
There's no word. The word good deal doesn't enter into it here. Right? On one hand, we have to be delighted in the return of 50 loved ones to their families. There can be no downside to that joy. And certainly one of the primary roles of the Jewish people and of the Jewish state is the redemption of hostages. And that goes back many, many centuries, certainly. On the other hand, the deal carries dangers, and you can't ignore the dangers. The danger is one of the people interviewed recently says that Hamas will use this period of 5 days of a ceasefire to regroup, to rearm, to extend its booby traps across the Gaza Strip, and that could endanger our troops. I see no way that it wouldn't endanger our troops. Secondly, it will create further momentum in the world for the ceasefire. Remember, a ceasefire for Hamas means victory. It just means they get away with mass murder. It means we lose. And it'll be not easy to renew fighting after 5 days. It'll also increase the domestic pressure on the government to have additional ceasefires for the other families whose loved ones didn't get out. And they're going to say, listen, we now know that if you have a ceasefire, you can get out, so have a ceasefire, which is what, Hamas wants that. So we're caught. The word good doesn't enter in here. It is a deal. It is a decision. We have to stand by that decision. But we can't lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is getting all the hostages out and defeating Hamas. And the two goals are very difficult to reconcile. That is the great challenge of the state of Israel today, to reconcile the two goals.
Now, in the past, Israel has released hundreds of prisoners in some instances, some of whom have come back and unfortunately killed more Israeli civilians. How do we know this won't happen now with the release of these security prisoners?
Of course it's going to happen again. Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, was a security prisoner released under the Gilad Shalit deal. Of course it's going to happen again. Think about the families of the Israelis who were killed, or in some way these prisoners contributed to their deaths. I understand they don't have blood on their hands, but they may have acquired the bombs for the bombers. They may have driven the suicide bombers to the site. So those families are also going to experience extreme amount of anguish. Can you imagine that? And I had a family member killed in a suicide bombing. I can't imagine how my family would feel if the people implicated in that bombing were somehow released from prison today. Think about this. Mm-hmm. So again, the word good doesn't enter here. It is difficult. There's joy in it. There's pain. And there's also fear.
Now, another concern about this hostage deal is that it places Hamas almost in a position of power to dictate terms to Israel. So instead of demanding immediate unconditional release of all our hostages, we're trading for 50 to maybe 80. How will Israel deal with this perception issue, both in terms of the military and the actual war, but also in terms of public relations and the perception of Israel?
Well, it's not just perception. We are, to a certain degree, dancing to Hamas's tune. And Hamas will say after this, after the 5 days, we'll release another 3 or 4 or 5 in return for another 2 days of ceasefire. And they're going to play that game. And it's going to be very difficult again, how do we say after we've agreed to this that we're not going to agree to another 2 or 3 days of ceasefire in order to get another 3, 4 hostages? And keep in mind that Hamas will never release all the hostages, because if they do release the hostages, then we could, for example, just flood the tunnels, right? We could unleash power that we haven't unleashed now because of the hostages. So Hamas was always going to want to hold on to some of these hostages. Keep in mind, Hamas has had hostages for years now, including the bodies of our soldiers, Golden and Oren, who were killed in 2014. This is these are not exactly honest brokers. Mm-hmm. Tough. But let us say that this is an important point. I'm here in the United States. I'm on an emergency fundraising tour for United Hatzalah, and I must say the American Jewish community has just been extraordinary in its generosity. But we would not have even gotten to this point had Israel not entered Gaza with its ground forces. What has forced Hamas, even though we appear to be dancing to Hamas's tune, the reason Hamas has made this deal is because our soldiers are killing them, because they're stuck underground. And so, yeah, we may be dancing to Sinwar's tune, but he's also dancing to our tune. So it's not all not 100% on their side.
Sure. Michael, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing these insights. Certainly a complex situation, but thank you for your time.
Have a good, peaceful day.